welcome to Cinema Crusaders, that show where we look at movies 10 years old or older, and we look at them and we analyze each element of them, decide what works and what doesn't, how well it still works today in 2026. And for today, we're going to be looking at Enemy Mine, a sci-fi, I would say cult classic. Would you say that that's true, Mike?
Oh, I'm going to say cult classic at least. I mean, those in the know have got to love this movie.
Yeah, yeah, I would. So yeah, the cult classic sounds about right. So yeah, we're looking at this movie starring Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr., who's an actor I've always liked, like throughout my childhood, and yet we really haven't discussed anything involving him, like in anything that we've covered. So. It's kind of I'm looking forward to getting into this one.
I got some things to say about him on that too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I will say, I really didn't watch this one that much when I was younger. Like I got little bits and pieces from like when it was showing on HBO and things like that, but I never really like watched the whole thing until not too long ago. But it was definitely worth my time. What do you think, Mike?
I came to it, as I recall, my dad watched this thing on HBO that talked about the making of it and how they did some of the special effects and everything. And that got him to want to watch the movie. And I watched that with him. So that's really how I came to the movie. And that was, of course, back in the 80s.
Yeah. Likewise. So, yeah. So I think, for me, it was basically that. And I will say, like, this movie apparently went through some serious development hell behind the scenes, but we'll kind of get into that. So I think what I'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the basic setup of this movie, kind of what happens, and then we'll get into like plot, what we see in as far as story goes. So the story basically centers around the future Earth, like. It seems like what they're saying is like 2097, and I'm like, we got some years going before we start meeting alien races. So we still don't even have flying cars yet. But yeah, this is supposedly in 2097,
which I should point out we should have had back in 2015. So I mean, the flying cars are lagging.
Yeah, we are way behind on flying cars. But yeah, so. The center character is Dennis Quaid, who plays Willis Davidge, who is a pilot for the ETA, which is the Earth government. And Louis Gossett Jr. basically plays the alien. We'll call him Jerry. It's kind of like his whole name and like everything involving that is complicated and kind of a plot point. So we'll get more into that at a later time, but. The idea is that they're in a war. They shoot Willis shoots down Jerry's ship. They crash. They're forced to survive, and the hilarity that ensues from there. What were you going to say, Mike?
Just that they make it very clear. When he first introduces himself, he clearly says Jariba. But Davidge says, so your name is Jerry, who cares? Like he clearly wasn't even listening. Yeah.
Jariba is kind of his family name though. So yeah. And that again it's like a huge plot point because we start to see eventually that it's Davidge that ends up bringing his son Zamis into Drac culture, the culture of the aliens, towards the end of the movie. And that's kind of shows like their whole growth as characters. But I will, go on.
I would. This is an observation I made about the movie itself. In war, I'm no expert on war. Okay, I'm not a soldier, whatever. But I have noticed a trend in what I read about war that. One of the first steps in war is to dehumanize your enemy. You have to make them so that they are no longer human. That makes it easier to kill them.
Yes, and that is exactly what happens in this movie. Yes,
this movie is exactly what I mean, it takes exactly that premise and flips it. It shows that this is what happens when you actually see that your enemy is a living being with a culture and a life and feelings and all this stuff.
Mhm.
It just completely flips that on its head, and that is the premise, I believe, of this film.
Yeah, I would say that that's accurate. I mean, because we definitely see that in the beginning, the Davidge character is completely like does not even treat Jerry as a human being, like at all.
And
And
notice the language. He's a lizard at first. If I mean I
yeah,
had to communicate with that lizard, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
toad
Like,
face, and
yeah.
things that I mean, you'll kind of look at him like, wow, that's racist. It's fantasy racism at its finest. But yeah, I mean, but that this, I mean, that actually kind of makes sense with the dehumanization. Is that they use these elements to look down on these people without even like having a real reason. Like, why do you even dislike this guy? Oh, well, my culture told me to. I mean, there really is no reason why David should dislike him other than that, and that's part of the movie as well as they find this out.
There was I see what you're saying, but as a there was a reason to have a disagreement with them over the
Hmm.
territory and space they were wanting to occupy.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always over resources. I mean,
Right.
it's a tale as old as time. Basically, they're fighting over land, they're fighting over resources, they're fighting over the things that are there. And you have one group of people, then they have like one group of people saying this, and the other group of people saying that, and they basically fight over it based on their narratives. Which again, we're kind of and we see that over and over again, and I think that unfortunately makes this movie still relevant in all the wrong ways.
I don't know. I don't I think that the points that this movie is making are timeless, and the
Hmm.
effects in it are such that you don't I mean, this is clearly an 80s movie, but it doesn't I don't know. I don't think the effects are such that even by today's standards, I don't think they're bad. They don't take me out, or I'm not going, oh well, that's
Hmm.
obviously crap, or
Yeah.
anything like that. I mean, I the movie seems to hold up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it does. It is well shot, and a lot of that is Wolfgang Peterson. If you've looked into the history of this movie and how it got made and the disaster, the development hell that it went through, he wasn't even attached at first. They had to throw out a previous director and all the work that he did for it, which had already cost them millions of dollars, because it
Oh
was
my
that
gosh.
bad. Yeah, it was that bad. Like they were filming in Iceland, and it was obviously in Iceland, and the weather conditions were such where they couldn't line up consistent shots, to make it look consistent, and things like that. So they threw out almost everybody. There was only three people that remained in the entire like cast of the movie, between versions, and that was Dennis Quaid, Louis Gossett Jr., and Brian James, the guy that played the villain, the head of the Scavengers at the end. That was it. Everything else they threw out and just started over completely with Wolfgang Peterson on board as soon as they were able to get him after Never Ending Story, I believe.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was definitely the guy for the job. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta I this is definitely one of those movies where I would say the director deserves a lot of credit, but
Mm-hmm.
this movie, and I will say this hands down right now, this movie is not as good without Louis Gossett Jr.'s amazing, and I mean stellar performance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the thing is that the character of Jerry, Jarita, absolutely is what makes this movie. It's
Uh-huh.
his interactions with Davidge that are the heart of the film. And so, and I was actually listening a little bit to Louis Gossett Jr. and his thoughts on how he created this character, and it's like apparently he
Oh,
drew a
really?
lot on Lon Chaney. Yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Man of a Thousand Faces. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, there was initially like a very old school horror vibe they were aiming for initially with like very Creature of the Black Lagoon early on, and
Oh,
that kind of evolved into what he became in the Peterson version.
I'm really glad they didn't do that. I think what needed to be done was accomplished with how different he looked without trying to make him look scary.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and because
as Drax go, I gotta say that was a good looking kid.
yeah, they're always cuter when they're young, right?
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's true. And I will say, like, the child actor that they used to play Xanis actually was surprisingly good. Like, he had the Drac mannerisms,
Right?
from Louis Gossett. So it's like I don't know who coached him. I don't know who that kid is. I don't know if he's still working or what. But like, kudos for that small role that he had.
You felt that, I mean, I did anyway. You felt that when he shows his hand on top of Davids's hand and he says, "I wish I had 5 fingers." You
Yeah.
you feel that because of that kid's performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that worked. I mean, especially like with David's like, no, I'm human. You're Drac. And he's like,
Right?
I'm Drac. and I'm like, that was like that. I did dig that because it's like he's being taught already to be proud of who and what he is. He is who and what he is, and that's not something to be ashamed of. And that shows a huge transformation from where Davidge was when he met Jerry.
Right.
He goes from basically like calling him Toadface and all of this to having this child that he's raising that he didn't have to adopt. A lot of people, it might sound horrifying, but a lot of people probably would have left him. But no, he honors his word to Jerry. I mean, because it was important to him.
Yeah, the name for the movie is perfect, and honestly, doesn't make any sense at all until you see the movie. Like, what do you mean, enemy mine? That's some weird English, dude. I don't know.
I am so glad you mentioned that. It was supposed to be a comma after enemy. So it's like the enemy is mine, my enemy.
Right.
But here's the thing: the producers of the movie didn't understand it either, and so they had this idea that, there has to be the part of the movie where it takes place in a mine. Otherwise, people are going to be asking, why is it called Enemy Mine?
Oh, my God.
And that's why the whole third act is in the movie.
Are you kidding me?
That's
what. Oh, my God.
It was not in the novel. I mean, there was a novella that was based on it. It was not in the novella that they did that. No. And that's kind of why it feels a little disjointed compared to the first two halves of the thirds of the film.
Actually, finding out that this was actually from a novella, I tried to see if I could find it on audiobook and I couldn't. But it was actually a little inspirational because I seem to be writing novellas. And I was like, you know what? If they can make a movie like this off of a short story like a novella, that's inspirational.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of movies, where they just took like a basic, the basic novella and expanded it. I mean, Total Recall was based off of the Phil Dick novella, so yeah, it works like that.
Right.
Yeah, Hitchcock did that a lot too. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common approach. And I will say, from what I understand, the core of what was in the movie is definitely in the first 2/3 of the film. The Mickey Mouse thing, if I recall right, was from the novella.
Yeah.
And I just think it's hilarious because, like, Mickey Mouse is now public domain and has been for like a couple of years now.
I loved Davich's response when Jariba retorted with and your Mickey Mouse is a big stupid dope. And he's like, hey, okay.
I mean, it's like they're making fun of each other's idols, and because it's like these two guys, they're completely bonded, and they're kind of like brothers now, and they just are constantly giving each other crap over every little thing. and because like partly it's because they still can't stand each other on some level, but on other levels it's like they're deeply deeply connected and they're the only people they have. And I think that's a huge part of why they survive the way they do.
This is something I actually didn't notice until just now. There's something in the fact that the first English word they show Jerry speaking is shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just imagine how many times Davidge had to say that for that to be the first English word he picked up.
He was saying it a lot up to that point. So yeah. Yeah. Yep. Lot of cursing. Yeah. That's who Davidge was. and which is kind of funny. It's like, yeah, I have to stop doing that now because I'm raising a kid.
Man.
Let's kind of look at the planet itself because I think that's another character in this movie. What did you think about how well it was developed?
The planet?
Yeah.
Well, I thought that the only thing that really kind of struck me as odd was how just invisible the atmosphere was on the planet. Like they showed views of space and it was like there was no barrier between us and space and the other planets. There were that part that I didn't understand that, but then again, I saw a video of clouds on Mars, and I don't know that Mars has much of an atmosphere. So what do I know?
It doesn't, and really a lot of that is because the electromagnetic field on Mars is almost minimal,
right?
So yeah, that's a lot to do with that. I think in this particular case,
the planet itself didn't. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of diversity to it. It was like a Star Wars planet where the whole planet is one geography.
There was a little bit of that. At least it kind of seemed like that at first. We do see that there are extremes in climate. I think the main consistent thing is just they're trying to show like this planet is hostile to human life or track life even. Like nobody can live on this planet. And yet these people find a way to do that, which, I mean, really believably, like a lot of planets wouldn't even be livable and they would probably be dead. They just happen to have one that just happened to have an atmosphere that worked for both humans and Drax. I don't even know what Drax breathe. Let's just kind of assume that they have similar respiratory systems. Even then, it's sort of like a lot of it is very convenient. But you also get all these extremes from it's a volcanic planet to it's really cold with these long winter cycles, and a huge freeze like every summer. So I mean every winter. So I don't know like how well that was thought out. I don't know how much of that was from the book, how much of that was just thrown in just to make sure that the conflict worked.
That could theoretically happen depending on this thing's position from its sun. You know what I mean? Like if it's really close, if it's closer on one part and goes way farther out, like how Earth does, that could explain something like that as far as the winter goes.
Yeah, the long rotation, and then on the other side, you kind of have this whole sandy area, which is where the scavengers were. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not like a single ecosystem, but it's more like the one consistent thing is this place sucks to live on,
right?
And it's like the kind of land, not to the extent like After Earth was, which was comical, but to the point where you're really kind of thinking about these things.
It definitely, I think that I guess I look at it from a plot point in that you needed an environment there where Davich and Jariba and Samis are all going to be dependent on each other to survive.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a survival story in space, really. That's really kind of what it is.
Right.
More than anything else. And I will say there is historical precedent for stuff like this. Like there was a case where a Japanese World War II soldier had gotten lost. I forget exactly like where he was lost, but it was like for decades, and he thought it was still World War II. Like by the time he was found, um, and all the whole time he was surviving just basically on basically what he had. It's kind of like that.
Didn't they do something almost exactly like that in Skull Island, Kong Skull Island?
Yes, I forget exactly who. Yeah, there was that. I think that was
There was that one guy that thought it was still World War II at the time. He had no idea the war was over and stuff. Yeah,
I think it was.
Well, that's actually based on a real thing.
Yeah. It was the Charles Nelson Riley character. Yeah, Charles C. Riley. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, that's kind of where that went. Are there any other thoughts on like any of the characters or like anything structurally?
Well, I guess one of the things that I really thought was I talked about how that whole getting to know your enemy, to humanize them, to make them to realize that they are another person, particularly the okay, well, number one, the name of I'm drawing a blank on them now. Zombies race, the Drax. The name of the Drax Bible is the Talmud, the same name of the Jewish Bible.
The Talman is what they called it, but yeah, it is based on the Talmud.
They had that similarity in common, and then there was the teachings that they believed in, that the Drax believed in, were the same. So it wasn't just this is another life. We actually think and believe the same things.
Yeah,
we're not only not enemies, we should be friends.
And I think the one moment that I think really brought that together was when Jerry was talking about like the philosophy of his people and about peace and finding finding peace with other people. And Davage's response is, I've heard that before. And Jerry's response was just basically, well, truth is universal. Truth is truth,
right?
And that kind of making the point that you have all of these different religious texts and a lot of these different philosophies that hone in on similar core truths, and that is what unites people. And the fact that they can find that and agree on that, I mean, kind of shows like the whole point of the movie, finding common ground amidst huge differences.
Right. That was actually a big thing for me when I was a kid, when I watched this. That scene you're talking about was a revelation for a guy raised in a very strict Christian household.
Yeah.
That I was like, wait a minute, the truth can be everywhere. It's not limited to this one purview. And I love this movie in part because it even got me thinking about the themes they're trying to talk about.
Yeah. And that was kind of like one of the things that's always kind of stuck with me most of my life, because I really wasn't like that strictly religious. It was just more that, I was kind of like okay with questioning everything, in different religions. And it always seemed like there were little bits and pieces that came together that were similar. So yeah, the idea that the core truths remain similar, they're just interpreted differently.
Right. I mean, in the case of this particular movie, this was what he was reading out of that Talmud was word for word what comes in at least the Christian Bible.
Yeah.
So
that was exactly what I was thinking too. Yeah.
This is not just a common idea expressed in a different way. This is the exact words being taught across a universe.
Yeah, there are a lot of there's a Drac Jesus apparently. Maybe that was the guy that founded the planet. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, and I will. So, what did you think of like the third act? I mean, did the changes they make work for you or no?
I don't know what changes they made. Maybe if you could elaborate
The
on that.
the kidnapping of Zamis and Davish having to go to rescue him before bringing him back to the homeworld.
Oh, so that entire part wasn't. How did they end it in the book then?
There was no mine in there. There were no scavengers. That was completely an invention. It was more dealing with the differences when they came back. Davidge having to come back, and there was racism, like kind of like on both sides of it, which is realistic, would have happened.
Right.
But there wasn't any like grand like action sequence that happened originally. So my sort of question is, did they change it? Yeah.
Did they still do the thing where Davidge got his name added to the line still?
Oh yeah, that was out of the book.
Okay.
Yeah. The end point was the same. The first two acts are kind of the same. It was just like they added the last one because the producers thought there should be a mine in the movie.
Well, I think the reasoning is stupid, but I kind of liked the ending. This was, I mean, you talk about in the book there being this whole racism on both sides where you're human, you're a Drac, we don't like you, blah blah blah. In the way they did that with that scene in the mine, with Davidge being able to actually defend the other Dracs and fight for them, and then they see how he is with zombies, then that totally bridged all of that crap in the aftermath, and they got to see it by showing, not telling.
Yeah, and I think this is where Peterson is a really smart director. He wasn't trying to slavishly hold of the book. It was more like, okay, I have this stupid thing that the executives want me to do. I'm going to save it with the execution. I'm going to make the execution serve the narrative that the author had intended. And, by making it basically, I'm risking my life for this kid that I wouldn't have given a damn about at the beginning against people like who I was, at the beginning of the movie, which is, they show how racist these scavengers are. They completely, the idea that they completely or don't see the Drac as human at all. And that's why they're able to enslave them, whip them, beat them, torture them, all the things that they did in that line.
Right.
And so, you have this one person coming in, to save this Drac that he regarded as a son that he would not have cared about, like, at the beginning of the movie, I think that's kind of earned by that point. And it works in a visual context where I think the original way that they did it probably would not have worked as well visually.
When it comes to a movie, quite honestly, I mean, you don't really want to do exactly what happened in the book. Because, I mean, if people want exactly what happened in the book, they can read the stinking book. So in a movie, you want to try to do something at least a little different, change it a little here and there. So even those who read the book, there's something new for them as well. And I think in this particular case, like you said, they managed to take the idea that the author was going for and just do it in a different way. And I mean, if you're gonna honor the author, I think that's the best way to do it in a movie. Being that there is change expected.
Yeah, it's kind of like with Count of Monte Cristo, where there's no way you could have gone Alexander Dumas the way that it was intended in the runtime that they had. It's just too complex. But the way that
would
they
have had to have been like a Lord of the Rings trilogy kind of thing for Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, it's a huge book. But the way that they kind of focused it on the character and his journey works better in the film. So I think that's the thing with a lot of these films, and we see it with Enemy Mine, where if you make it about the main character, the guy we're following, in this case Davidge, and his journey, and even if it doesn't necessarily go the way that it was in the book, but it follows the character as it was envisioned in the book, I think that's fine. And it seems like that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are on the same page there.
All right. So let's see. What do we want to? Well, really, like, there's not a whole lot to talk about in terms of casting, but do you want to talk about the acting a little bit more?
Well, I mean, okay, with Louis Gossett Jr., I mean, this was not just having to walk around in 6 tons of makeup and plastic all day. This was not just having to learn to move and act in a completely different way. Imagine having to do those tones and the vocalizations that came out of him and stuff like that. I mean, the dedication that he put into bringing that character to life is, I mean, that is why he just outshines everything else in the movie for me.
Yeah, and I will point this out. He was saying that, everybody else had been passing on this role because they were covering their faces, and like covering their eyes, and they didn't want to do that. Gossett did it because he liked the challenge of being able to emote the character, without having those things. So this is somebody who puts his performance above his ego, which is something that we're still kind of struggling with, even modern Hollywood. And Gossett did that, and he put the performance first. He put the character first, and I think that it really came out. Like, you wouldn't even know this was Louis Gossett if you hadn't been told. It's really that good of a performance,
right? This is unlike any other character I've ever seen him portray. He's usually got that kind of that serious kind of stoic thing going. You know what I mean? So this was, I mean, this had to be out of his comfort zone, and I mean, damn, he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, because normally you're used to. I mainly remember him from like Iron Eagle, Officer and a Gentleman, El Diablo, which is a movie I would like to eventually talk about. Those kinds of things, and and so it's not often that I really see him in like science fiction type roles. I have occasionally, like on Stargate. But even then, I don't feel like he was playing a character like this, who is truly alien and yet has that element of humanity behind the makeup and, the fact that, he's drag. It just connects together really, really well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and honestly, oh man, hold on. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Dennis Quaid. He was pretty popular in the 80s, but I mean, beyond the 80s, maybe even a tad into the 90s, where is he?
He's done a lot. He's done a lot. The problem is like he hasn't done a whole lot of really major roles. I remember he was in Any Given Sunday, like as the older quarterback.
Okay.
He was in some other things, but it's just kind of hard to think of a lot of standout performances from later that are memorable the way like this movie is and some of the other things he's done.
The two movies I think of 3 movies when I think of Dennis
Frequency.
Quaid.
That's another good
one. Frequency. I forgot about that one. One, I think about Enemy Mine. 2, I think about Inner Space. And 3, I think about Dennis Quaid actually dated a girl that acted in Halloween. And when a person in the audience comment about her breasts when she showed them, he got pissed and actually wanted to say something, and she had to get him to calm down.
I gotta admire somebody who'll stick up for his woman. That was cool.
I don't know if that's sticking up for your woman or your own ego, but all right.
Sometimes the right thing comes out from the wrong impulse.
Right. True enough.
Yeah. But yeah, what do we think about as his performance? Because like early on, he is not a likable character, and he sells the transformation. That I think it really says a lot.
Oh yeah. His entire his mannerisms changed. And this has got to take some skills to do. The very spirit he walked around in was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, here he is being this really gung-ho, reckless pilot, who's just like all he cares about is shooting down bad guys and going home. And then, we start to see like he loses his friend, the guy that was the co-pilot. He shows genuine emotion about this. And then the whole point where it's like he looks like he wants to kill Jerry, and he doesn't. And then he just kind of walks away. I mean, that's kind of where you start seeing the wheels sort of turn in his head.
Did you I don't know if you caught this or if this is just
Mm-hmm.
something somebody weird like me would notice. But the thing where he could have killed Jerry and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I am reminded of when Saul was chasing David, and David and Saul and his men had fallen asleep in a cave,
Mm-hmm.
and David
Mm-hmm.
snuck in, went right up to Saul and cut off a piece of his robe, and then he left. Saul comes out, and David calls him, and David shows him the piece of his robe. He says, "I could have killed you. You were in my hands, and I could have killed you, and I didn't." That scene just reminded me of that.
You're better on the biblical references than I am. I'm kind of weird in my own way, so I don't know how many people would necessarily get that. I would say anybody who is biblically knowledgeable probably would, but that's just not me. But that's fair. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and look at the effects in the cinematography. So
Okay.
let's go with like the look of the planet. How a lot of this is really practical effects, and you can kind of tell that it's practical effects.
Well, like to be fair, it's 1985. What do you expect them to use?
Right. Yeah. Well, CGI was like a few years off from there. It was, I want to say it was like 88, 89. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're getting kind of like to the end of the practical effects era. But I mean, I will say I was reminded a little bit of the Sarlacc with the monster in the sand.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's in Return of the Jedi was only a couple of years before that, so I'm not sure whether that was a deliberate reference, or if that was just something like, okay, we don't have budget, so this is what we're doing.
It could have been both, but with how popular Star Wars movies were in the early 80s, there is no possible way that someone could have not had that on their mind. That scene wouldn't have come to mind, even if they had thought of it randomly. There's no way that scene didn't come to mind while they were making it. One way or another, that scene came to somebody's mind making that.
Yeah, it had to have, whether it was deliberate or not. I think it absolutely worked though, because they needed a bigger monster to bring them together at just the right time.
Also, they needed one that would drive them out of the tent and force them into the cave.
Yeah. So that absolutely made sense. It may have been that it was a different creature that was in the book, and they couldn't afford it. So it's like, yeah, we'll just do like Sarlacc version 2.0. And that's
wasn't
just
that kinda burly though when Davidge grabbed. I mean, those were huge ass coals. Just, I mean, red. Grabbed that big old handful of them and threw them in his mouth. I was like, oh my god! Do you know how much that would hurt?
Yeah, it's clear that he was doing this like out of pure instinct at that point.
Right.
Like, and that kind of shows you like their bond had grown to the point where he is instinctively like risking his own hands,
right,
to save your life. Like that absolutely cements like where he had been at that point.
I mean, we're talking massive burns there. I mean, 3rd degree at the very least.
Yeah. And he'd already taken a bunch of hits, by that point. So yeah. Yeah, and I will say the sets, they looked really good. It wasn't obviously Iceland,
right?
I mean, they might have been sets. They're really clear, like at least some of it was shot in sets, But apparently, apparently a lot of it was shot in Munich, so probably sets in Munich is kind of where they filmed a lot of this.
I liked that it felt familiar and yet still alien.
Yes, there was a lot of that. And I like that it wasn't a single ecosystem. It's not like all of it's not hot. It's not like the planet of like volcanoes today. There were a lot of different ecosystems that were together, even if it seemed a little patchwork at times. And the only thing that they have in common is that they're all hostile. At least there was more effort put into it than you see in a lot of Lucas planets.
You know, this a thought occurs to me. Yauta Prime. We often picture it as this jungle planet, and at one time that's how it was perceived. But we find out that there are actually different ecosystems on their planet, and that actually describes the different why there are the different predators and stuff. So even though in enemy mind they seem to focus on one type of ecosystem, we could have only been viewing one area of the planet.
Yeah, that's likely. And interesting that you do mention the predators. I will say, like, the ecosystem that we saw in Predators was almost entirely that whole jungle area,
right?
But so there's definitely like an evolution that we're starting to see, or maybe the other way around. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, no, I mean, in the comics, even they expanded Yauta Prime to have different ecosystems.
Okay, so it's from the books. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha.
I just thought that was a good example.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It like it seems like it's easier to do in the novel to do that kind of thing, you know, rather than actually show it on screen. Even with CGI, that's not always the easiest thing to do.
Right. And like you said, practical effects or not, these are good. They stand up.
Yeah.
Even the space stuff, other than the fact that I'm still annoyed every time I hear sound in space. But I honestly think the effects are good. Nothing about them takes you out of the moment at all.
Yeah, I mean, starfighters in general, they're like all people that say how unrealistic starfighters are. I don't really care when it's a movie.
Right.
It's just, you know, and there is a Star Wars sort of feeling to that early moments. I mean, you can definitely tell like Star Wars was still an influence even in '85. Like, you know, that was like a couple of years after the Star Wars trilogy had concluded, the original one, and it was still influencing everything after that. And I think with this movie, there's still a little bit of that and trying to make another lightning in the bottle happen with sci-fi, even if it didn't materialize.
Honestly, the only sci-fi I have ever watched that didn't have sound in space was the Battlestar Galactica reboot in 2004. Yeah. They actually didn't have any sound when they were in space.
And 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because there was that whole period where they were out in the exosuit and there absolutely was no sound at that point. And the sound came back on once he got back in the pod. Yeah.
Well, there's another one then. I haven't watched 2001: Space Odyssey since I was a child.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's a classic. So, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I think we've covered just about everything.
I think so.
We want to, unless you have something else.
No, I think I covered all the main points that I wanted to talk about. I mean, we just got to get to the review and scoring portion, I think.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go next. So,
all right,
let's kind of. All right, I'm thinking about this. This is a pretty good movie. I think it still holds up. I think it's and in some ways it's still, you know, definitely relevant in all the wrong ways. There are some movies you don't want to be relevant, and it's movies with themes like this, but it is still relevant.
We'll call that sadly relevant.
Sadly relevant, yeah. Sadly relevant. It is sadly relevant. I think the visuals are still good enough that they hold up, and I think a lot of that is the practical effects, the practical shooting. Wolfgang Peterson is very good at making, really these really impressive landscape shots. A lot of that really works. When you see the sunrise, walk in the distance, it does hit you. So the sense of desolation, the sense of isolation, that's all there. And even though they changed the story, they changed the story that worked for the movie and kept the spirit of what the story was about, which I think is important.
Very, yeah.
I'm thinking, but it's like at the same time, I mean, are there things that don't hold up? Maybe. It is a 1980s movie. It does show some of the music moments. You can definitely kind of tell that the background music is very 80s, but that's not a lot. I'm going to say 8.5, just because I think it's a movie that I'm not going to go back and see that often, but it's still a movie worth seeing more than once.
Well, I will say that I agree with a lot of what you said there. I think that I don't know, this is a movie I watch at least every couple of years. Same with The Last Starfighter. These are just movies that were part of my childhood, and every once in a while I like to go back and do the nostalgia thing or whatever. But I mean, so I got to take into consideration there is that factor going into the review, that I have this whole attachment to the thing. Yeah. So I can't give it a 10. But just because I don't know necessarily how somebody who's never even seen it or heard about it might come to it. Let me say I'm gonna give it a 9.
All right. 8.75 total. Yeah, that sounds right to me. Yeah, I think that it's got a lot going for it. I'm not sure how well it's going to necessarily seem to a new audience, but I think you can get enough of the basics from this movie without necessarily it's not like Scrooge, where a lot of it is definitely rooted in 80s isms. So I don't think that that's going to be a huge problem. I still think it holds up. You don't necessarily have to know that it was a Cold War era film to understand the spirit of it. But at the same time, I mean, it's definitely a low budget film, and it looks it at times. It sounds it at times, but there's enough of the story that I think shines through that it doesn't matter, and it's good enough. And right. So I'm thinking 8.75 is good.
The theme of the movie and the I don't know, maybe it's different for me, because this things about this movie took me on a journey. So I don't know if it's going to be the same for everybody like that, but I really think that I can't imagine a time where the themes that are talked about in this movie are not going to be 100% relevant.
Sadly so, yes. I would like for them to no longer be at some point.
Right.
But that is like my hopeless idealism coming out.
Right.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and kind of leave it at that. So okay. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So is there anything else you want to bring up before we go, Mike?
Just go check out The Dread. It is available on Amazon, and I am almost to the final chapter on my second book.
Scorn, yes. So looking forward to it, yes. And I'm kind of involved on both, so I'm a little bit biased, but I will say read them when they're out.
And yeah, aren't you doing you're doing some good stuff with your Blitzverse stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I'm still working on. I haven't started on them yet, but I'm kind of in the middle of getting the plot outline done and all the details finished on those. So yeah,
that's an important stage. Yeah.
So I want to make sure everything is gone right for both, and I'll talk about those when the time is more appropriate for that.
Okay.
Okay. So, but everybody here is not necessarily here to hear us talk our book. So we'll just go ahead and leave it until next time. We will continue with sci-fi, I think, probably for the rest of the month. I think that's a good theme to keep going with.
Okay.
So, and I think you'll like what I have to suggest for you once we get off camera. So we'll go ahead and done with that. Okay, so until next time, this is Cinema Crusaders recommending Enemy Mine for all of those who have not seen it. And next time we're going to get into probably one of Mike's favorite directors if it all goes according to plan. So nice. We will see how that works out. Right. And until then, get your popcorn ready, watch some cinema, and we'll see you next time. See you.